recording me. বন্ধ করো। ওটা কি ঘোরাও? ওটা কি ঘোরাও? Much more interesting than the other way around.
Yeah, do that also.
My name is Bata, I'm your guide. I'll be showing you a little bit of our town and the country in this 2.5-hour tour. If you have some question, just ask. Yeah?
And will we be able to step out and take pictures?
That's the idea, yeah. Not all the time though.
Not all the time.
Every now and then when I think it's a nice place. Countryside, and then make a stop there, and from there on we'll get into the city. Just a couple of words about the country. It's called the Netherlands. It's a monarchy. We have a king. His name is Willem-Alexander. We also have parliamentary democracy. Parliament is in The Hague. Now if you take the road here and you go that way for an hour, you would come into the city of The Hague, and that's where you find both Parliament and the royal family. The capital of the country is the city of Amsterdam that we are going to see. Now, as I said, half of the country is below the sea level, and most part of it's flat. Actually, most of the Netherlands is just like that, except for one small part, southeast part of the country, a border with Germany and Belgium there. That's where it becomes a little bit hilly. That's where you find the highest hill in the Netherlands. It's only about 320 meters, and we call it the St. Peter's Mountain. The lowest point, on the other hand, is about 6.5 meters below the sea level, not far from here. It's a half an hour drive to the south side. Now the canals that you see, the small ones, the big ones, all the rest of it, you can see them literally everywhere, are for one purpose only, the big ones here. So they collect the water both from the ground and from the rain, and all that water needs to be pumped out. For instance, this area is also below the sea level, so that means usually you have to pump the water either to the big canal or the river, which would bring it all to the sea. Here in front of us, I'll be taking the turn to the left and drive next to Amstel for a while. The small place called Oude Kerk started here about the same time as Amsterdam would start, in the beginning of the Middle Ages, around the 11th century. Now this place stayed just a small village And Amsterdam, on the other hand, developed to be one of the biggest harbors in Europe during the coast of the 16th and 17th century, mainly when it was the main port of West Europe. That period of time is known nowadays as the Golden Age of the Dutch Republic. For the most part, what we are going to see in the Old Town is also from that period. People would first build a dam in the river. Dutch word for it is dam. So from these two words, Amstel, the name of the river, and the dam, the name came Amsterdam. Later it turned into Amsterdam. Now I'm driving now on the dike. This kind of a wall of stamped earth next to the river to keep the river in its place, prevent the flooding. Here you can see it clearly. If you look to the left, you'll see these grass fields are lower than the water in the river. Funny thing is, you don't see that much around the world. Here it's kind of a normal thing. That means that all the canals that you see are collecting the water, and until the 19th century the water was pumped with the windmills. What they are doing in this area is mainly producing milk. They keep cows. From that milk they make cheese. This used to be a very busy river, the Amstel River, because it was connected with the harbor of Amsterdam. And all the goods from the harbor would get on the small boats and get inland through the river. Nice terrace. And this is the windmill. The statue here is of Rembrandt, famous painter from Amsterdam.
Babu started in his photography mission shooting yak. Is that a yak? So nice.
That's a brilliant joke. Absolutely. Other people that aren't simply developing kids. So, yeah,
This area was built, developed beginning of the 20th century, some 100 years now ago. 1910 to 1950 more or less. This town became known as the Amsterdam School of Architecture. Quite good apartments, and it's very popular area of town. And if you think that it's all apartments, it is so. 80% of people who live in Amsterdam would live in alone. Houses are quite expensive here. Speaking of which, Amsterdam is the most expensive town in the Netherlands concerning everything like cost of living, what you pay for apartment, but also all other things, food and going out, and especially parking. We are famous for having some of the highest parking rates in Europe. About €5 an hour would be to park a car. And this is a small part of the town where you see these rich people's houses here on this canal. Couple of things that I want to see when visiting Amsterdam: red light district, coffee shops, museums, canals. We are still in the Old South, but this part is a bit older still. Here we move in the area that was built around the second half of the 19th century. Amsterdam, these things floating on the canal are called the houseboats. And people live there permanently, so they don't move. And most of them are connected to water, sewage, electricity, gas, so it's a real house. There's a couple of thousands of them on the canals of Amsterdam. Since the 90s, no new ones are allowed anymore, so you can only buy an existing one. It is in this part of the Old South that we have a small example of the red light district. That's what I want to show you now. One thing, don't take the pictures of the scene. The ladies that are sitting in this window, they don't appreciate it. In Amsterdam, this area, we have about 60 of those. It's also legal here, provided you're older than 18. But of course, that's not the only thing that people come to visit Amsterdam. They also come to see our famous museums. To be nice and friendly for today, so we just stay in the bus, and actually I'm advised to move on.
Okay. What's the name of this museum right here?
Rijksmuseum. I'm going to show it to you, the front side of it,
Okay.
and usually I would be able to stand here for 3 minutes or something, but not now. Sorry about that. So that was the museum quarter. The beginning of the sunny period here. And if you think all these people look kind of hilarious about the sun, that's true. Have been waiting a long time for this. Montessori Lyceum of Amsterdam. One of the best schools in town. Yeah. Cool.
Crowded in here.
Oh,
Streets.
yeah, well, you know. It's a 130-year-old building and one of the most famous art collections in the world. If you want to see paintings of Rembrandt, Vermeer, and mostly these Dutch and Flemish painters from 17th and 18th century, this is where you have to come. This is the front side of the museum, and the main entrance is right there in the middle. From the Rijksmuseum, I'll be making here a turn to right, bringing us into the canal area, the most famous part of town. Now, when people want to come to see Amsterdam, this is
Real.
where they want to go. This year we celebrate 400 years since the canals were digged. Well, actually they started digging them 400 years ago and building the houses alongside national monuments and part of the World Historical Heritage from the year 2010, proclaimed by UNESCO. We are now driving alongside the longest of the three main canals. This one is called the Prinsengracht. Gracht is a Dutch word for a canal, thus this would mean the canal of the prince. The other two main canals are called the Keizersgracht, the canal of the emperor, and the Herengracht. And of course, always be careful about the bikes. It's only here in the downtown area that there are no separate bicycle paths for the simple reason the streets are kind of narrow. For the rest, they are all over the place, which makes biking quite a safe business here. If you like the place and you consider buying some property here, I will tell you that this is the most expensive real estate in the Netherlands. They really operate with millions here, euros. But then again, you would be living in a national monument. I think I'm just going to make a stop here. as a 7 bridges point. Those 7 bridges are all in line.
¿O eso o puede ser que sea eso? Es que claro, ¿para dónde? ¿Para allá o para acá?
Shake it up. हेलो अपनी
Is it
कोथा है
recording?
इट इज अपनी कोथा है आम्स्टरडम
Amsterdam.
Now, slowly but steadily we are approaching the Dam Square, the main square of Amsterdam. And this here is the Royal Palace. The royals, by the way, don't live here. They live in another palace in The Hague. When they visit Amsterdam, then they stay here. This is maybe interesting if you don't know how our king and queen look like. You can see them right here in front of us. To the left, King Willem Alexander, and to the right, his Queen Maxima. It was also that 10 years ago they got their wedding in the same church. This one. They have the exhibition at the moment there about the royal family. So for those who want to know more about it, that's the place to visit. It's again the 19th century building. Before they put the railway and the building of the central station, this was an open view to a harbor of Amsterdam. And just to remind you again, during the 17th and 18th century, the biggest harbor in West Europe was here. This was the beginning of the time of the decline. From here they decided to put the harbor in Rotterdam. Later on, in the beginning of the 20th century, Amsterdam got itself an airport. The church to the right is one of the two Catholic churches of Amsterdam. This one is St. Nicholas Church. And St. Nicholas is the patron saint of Amsterdam. Out of the water, bringing people to the north part of the city. On the roof, of course, you see people enjoying the sun. That's a nice part of it. By the way, you don't have to visit museum if you want to lay down there. To the left. And the ship is also to be visited. It's part of that museum. we don't have really a commercial harbor anymore, but still the big cruise ships bringing tourists from all over the world can visit also here, Amsterdam.